Hello and welcome back to another video with me, Meoni, and this is the live letter live from E3 2018 breakdown. I do this for every live letter, trying to break it down into sizable chunks so we don't have to actually sit through over 2 hours of live letter and we can just break down what was talked about. So first of all, the first thing that they were obviously going to be talking about was the Monster Hunter collab that was announced yesterday on the 11th of June 2018, and to further iterate on that Rathalos will be making his way into Final Fantasy XIV as part of this new event. However, there are more details on that to come, but first they showed another trailer which was actually leaked on the Monster Hunter World website. This is that trailer, and essentially it shows Behemoth coming to Monster Hunter World's universe. They bring on the producer and director of Monster Hunter from Capcom, and they talk about how the event came to be. But Yoshida and him are good friends, and that they used to drink after work to let off steam, and that they actually planned this eventual collaboration for over 8 years before Yoshida took over Final Fantasy XIV and made A Realm Reborn. At the first time they talked about this collaboration was when he was working on the Dragon Quest team. Capcom was willing to help out with Final Fantasy XIV's reboot, but Yoshida said no, not to embarrass Square Enix in this regard, and then eventually decided to do this collab with Capcom. So for this you will need to be level 70 and have completed the Stormblood main storyline. Behemoth will also be a very hard Monster Hunter boss within Monster Hunter World. They didn't want either to be low-level event stuff in each game respectively, and wanted it to be challenging to be respectful to both franchises. Rewards will be announced in late July time, and fans can be assured they will not be disappointed. Apparently you have about a month before the actual content releases to make sure you are ready to take on each respective challenge. Next they went on to a Q&A section, and I'll briefly go through these questions. Obviously I'm not going to go word for word exactly what they said to basically speed this up. So, character creation limited. Any plans to update this? The answer was, they don't want to put too much into the game to slow loading times, etc. So there are actually no plans to update character creation at this time. In the long term, however, they might consider it in the future with changes to the graphics engine, if that eventually comes up in the future. Would you consider making all Mog Station items account-wide? The answer is, specific keys are used to redeem items in the system, and since these internal keys are limited, they want to limit the amount of account-wide items to more high-cost items. Their system is not capable apparently of dealing with all of those items being account-wide. I'm not sure what to really look into here, but I've never heard of this before. It is what it is. Deep Dungeon, can you please consider putting this type of content for more people in the base patch content instead of making people wait for patches? They were basically alluding to people getting bored of not having anything to do. The answer is, they release content slowly, deliberately, to prevent everything being done at the start of a major patch, and that there would be too much to do. Also, this is to stretch it between major patches and to be staggered on the schedule, so that you're not left with months and months between each patch cycle. Eureka content and Heaven on High wouldn't be done at the same time, as well as the base patch, to prevent item level dilution as well, to create a format of progression that's understandable, otherwise people might miss out things like Tsukiyomi Extreme, and simply wait for the Pagos weapon. Will Ishgard ever get a housing district? The answer is, even after Shirogane opened, people voiced their desire for Ishgard. It is particularly difficult to add housing areas, and they have nothing planned at this time, but if there's a plan in the future, they would definitely try to make Ishgard on their top concerns. Is there any chance that the beginning of a game can be more streamlined to get into interesting points more easily and faster? The answer is, we have looked at the possibility of less quests in A Realm Reborn, but they realised that it would take up a lot of resources and time to do that. They have the intention to do this at some point, however, so stay tuned for the future. Role actions are mandatory. Are there any plans to remove certain actions from role actions to make role actions more of a choice, instead of having to go for protect, for example? The answer is, there's always talks about this, especially with new expansions. This is one of their current discussions internally, and if there is any way to address this in time for 4.4. However, they need to find out what direction they want to go with this, and they'll talk about it in future live letters. Are there any plans to implement an in-game search and application system for free companies? Currently, the UI team is considering this and how to actually implement it. The plans are being drafted and they won't make it for the next major patch update cycle, but they do want to do it sometime soon. When can we one day replace story instances? The answer is, we have several ideas considered and how to incorporate this into the game. They don't want to say no to this feature, but they don't have much to say on it at the moment. However, they are moving towards addressing this and responding to the voices raised by their fans to one day have replayable story instances in the game. Are there any plans to update the minion list? It would be nice to have more information on where they're from, etc. We actually understand this system is quite hard to understand, and we are actually planning to completely remake it. Can we have a way to use limit breaks in G-pose without having to use them and press G-pose in battle for pictures? That action cannot be used without a target. Technically, it's not something that's impossible if there's enough need, but do we allow for players to use this outside of where it should be used, and used so readily at that? We're having discussions about it, but we don't want to take it from where they are used to limit its appeal and grandiose. Will we ever see legacy servers to experience the 1.0 storyline? Yoshida simply shook his head at this question and said no. If we were to physically bring that back, we'd have to dig through scrapped data and completely rebuild it, because we scrapped it to make a Realm Reborn. Also, bringing back that part of the game would possibly demerit the experience that was a gift to players who put up with 1.0 before they ultimately killed it and remade it into a Realm Reborn. And finally, the last question is, any updates to let players share housing with their alternative characters? We are currently working on that as a task in-house. They've no idea on the timing for that release, but it definitely will be available in the future. They are trying to make player housing bind to account, and a new system in accompaniment to that to have house mannequins displaying gear. Next, they wanted to talk about a couple of items in the Deep Dungeon. This was their little Deep Dungeon preview. There wasn't as much as I expected them to show here. This includes the new hairstyle, which is obviously from one of the sacks that drops in here, and the dodo mount. Yoshida actually jokes here that his wings are too small, so maybe he can't fly. However, this was a joke, and it of course can fly like most of the new mounts. So next up, they look at the FanFest dates and locations that we already know about, but more importantly, the rewards from the actual FanFests. The first reward will be attainable by everyone who goes to a FanFest event. This is the SDS Fenrir bike mount. This is Cloud's bike. This was actually in a live letter back in Realm Reborn time. It's been so long. People had thought this had just been thrown in the bin a long time ago. I was adamant that eventually we'd see this back. Turns out I was right, and this is going to be the new FanFest mount reward. Also, in addition to this mount, each region will also get a different minion. So if you attend the FanFest in America, you'll get a specific minion that the other two do not. However, this time FanFest will be free to watch outside of the actual concerts, which will not be broadcast, so you won't actually have to buy a ticket online to view this. So you might be asking, well, how can I get this mount and the rest of it? If you can't attend the events, you can straight up buy all of the minions and the mount on the MOG station, which is absolutely awesome, isn't it? And I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about that. You can buy tickets as of July the 10th for the Las Vegas show, with a Lodestone page they're uploading tonight with further details. They're also apparently teaming up with Nippon Travel Agency in Japan to make a North American Fan Festival tour, essentially putting a tour package on that goes from November the 15th until November the 20th for Japanese people to actually go to America, spend some time there and come back, with the FanFest tickets included. It doesn't show a price or anything for that, but I would imagine it's quite expensive. So now we're moving on to the merch section. There is the new soundtrack CD. This is the Stormblood original soundtrack. This is actually coming very soon, and actually comes with the Tsukiyomi minion code for in-game. This will cost you $49.99, €39.99 or £34.99 in the UK. However, there will be over 100 tracks on this Blu-ray, so that's why the cost is so great. It's not actually too bad, and it is actually cheaper to buy it this way than buy it track by track on iTunes. Also, in addition to this, we have an Estinian statue. This was unveiled. This was actually leaked on Reddit before the live letter, sadly, but here we go. It's going to cost 8,800 yen or $89.99, which is quite pricey, but these statues usually are, and they show it off here with full articulation, which should make some people interested. And finally, the Spriggan plushie. This will cost $34.99 and comes with a stuffed Spriggan for your house in-game as a furnishing. And finally, the companion app for Final Fantasy XIV is actually still releasing, only in late July. This had been delayed to get it to work how they wanted it to work, and it should be on the Apple and Google stores in late July. And that's pretty much it for the live letter live from E3 2018. So what did you find the most interesting point that it brought up? There wasn't a lot of information, but personally the idea that FanFest items will finally be on the MOG station instead of those not rich enough to actually attend the shows worldwide or wanting to deal with horrible third-party websites this time is absolutely amazing. Get hyped, there's only 5 months to go until the first FanFest. Thank you kindly for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time. And here we are live for Square Enix's E3 conference. No games announced, but we have a man dressed as a sausage. 10 out of 10, E3 2018.